What's going on, guys? Today we have another sculpture video. Today we're using Sculpey. I've never used it before, but we're going to give it a shot. We're starting off here with a pine board base that I've sanded and rounded the edges off of. Got our original Sculpey from good old Walmart. And this is a little test here. I made like a little mock-up wolf head. We're going to be doing Death from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. He's a really metal character. He's basically like, he plays Death, and he's a wolf with two chotels, and he's coming to take the life of Puss in Boots. But one of my favorite characters of late, but a lot softer than we're used to with the cosplay. We've got a steel armature this time that I'm gonna bend into shape with these pliers. And we've got some different varying armature wires we're using today. So we're going to drill our holes in the base to get started here. I did not go all the way through. This is probably halfway through the board just to give the wire something to pop down into. I didn't even glue this one, so the model can be removed from the base if I need it to be for any reason. So we start with like a acute bow shape that we pop down into the holes. We got to make some bending adjustments here and there. This model was a rather tall one. It's probably, I would say, 13 to 14 inches tall, maybe a little taller after it's all said and done. So there's the height. And we took some copper wires for the arms and we bound them together with some of this little steel wire that I had left over. And then for the body to join the bridge between the two steel posts that go down for the legs, I wound some of this smaller stuff around the core for the body to hang off of. And we're trying something a little different this time, guys. I tried some air dry clay to put onto the armature to work as the skeleton, and it shockingly worked perfectly. I gave it 24 hours to dry. It did crack a little, as do most air dry clays. If you make the model kind of thick, it tends to crack a little. But it held its shape enough that it worked perfect for the skeleton. And when I put the Sculpey on it and baked it, nothing negative happened. It just hardened the Sculpey on the outside and we were good to go. So, odd little experiment there, but it turned out pretty good. So we go down to about the hip level here, and we finish it off by twisting it off to the end. And there we've got our metal armature. This is the air dry clay. At the time I had no idea if this was going to work. This is some really weird feeling stuff. It reminds me of string cheese. It kind of pulled off in this like fibrous like section here. It was kind of strange. But molded together good. Kind of reminded me of marshmallow fluff. It has a certain bounce back texture to it. It's not capable of getting really high resolution details without it like kind of bouncing back and losing texture as you're holding it. So I thought I would use it for this and see if that worked, and it ended up working fine. So we're pressing it onto the skeleton here, wrapping it around all the armature so we can wait for it to dry. Wrapping the legs around all the way down. We cut it short because the hands and the paws are all going to be made out of Sculpey instead of being wrapped around the air dry clay. This is the very first project that I've ever done that used both air dry clay and polymer clay. So it was kind of interesting to see how this was going to work. So we just basically, he's wearing a dark poncho that covers most of his torso, most of his shoulders and body. The only thing we're going to see sticking out are the feet and the hands and his head. So the body does not get very good detail resolution. It's basically just there for filler. So we just want to fill up the space so the poncho looks good while it's hanging off of his body. So we're going to come down here and wrap the arms around, and we're going to pull it off short here so that we can put his hands on later, made out of the polymer clay. This stuff was a little tricky to work with. It seemed like it was trying to dry as I was working with it. It was kind of powdery, kind of like when you mix flour and water. But we got there and got it all wrapped around the skeleton for the next step. And then we're capping off the head, making sure it's tall enough to put the wolf face on the front of it. He's got some rather tall ears and a snout, so we wanted plenty of support under there. So this is the next day. You can see it's developed some cracks where the different sections didn't quite connect good enough, but it held its shape enough that it served its purpose. So we're starting with the feet. We're now using the polymer clay Sculpey. So we just basically start at the feet. We do layer the entire model with the polymer clay. We just rolled out kind of a noodle, wrapped it around the bottom, and then squeezed a little bit more mass to the end to form the paw. And we later went in and added the toes. We just put 2 slices down the front and rounded the toes out. And we do lift up the heel later on to make it more dog-like. We've added some little hair wisps to the back of the legs here and added the dog-like bend to the back of the leg. Again, from the knees up, you're not going to see a lot after he gets the poncho later on. I also rolled out each individual toenail in a little cone shape and stuck it to the ends of each toe. We're just smoothing out the legs here, getting it to look as good as possible. So we just continue to layer on the Sculpey one section at a time. We went from the feet up, so we're putting on part of the torso here. We just roll it out in sheets similar to the last project we did and just put it on in sections. We wrap it around, connect it into the back, and push it in on itself, and then swap away all of the seams. Again, there was no detail added to the torso, chest, or shoulders of the model because it's completely hidden later on. Here we're adding another section around the chest and shoulder area. These complex angles are kind of tricky. I just kind of draped it over the front and connected it where I could in the back, and pulled it and stretched it until the seams meet each other. Nice shot of my arm there, wouldn't you say? And in some cases where the seams did not meet, I had to add extra little pieces to bridge the gaps. So now we're down to the forearms. So we're bringing it all the way down to where we're going to connect the hands later on. So again, we just rolled the clay out into a rectangular shape, tore off the parts we did not need, and joined them together. You can see the body mass is looking more realistic now. Okay, so we basically rolled out some noodles and flattened them and wrapped them around his wrists and ankles for his wraps. We also sculpted the tail and the hands and the face here. My camera did shut off on me and it skipped quite a bit of sculpting there, but I was doing my best and didn't notice that it had shut off. So the hands I just sculpted like a little oven mitt shape and cut the fingers out, rounded them, and curled them so that they could hold the weapons. And then the tail has its own little armature wire, so I just curled a piece of wire up and wrapped it and made it look tail shaped. And the face I just modeled after the face from the show. His boxy nose and glaring eyes, and his two ears that are pointed upward. So we did cut out a section of old black t-shirt because nothing looks more like a cotton piece of cloth than a cotton piece of cloth. And now we're painting all the exposed parts jet black, so that we can go through and airbrush them later on with a gray, and it will make all of his wraps show up a lot better and look more detailed. Normally I coat the entire piece with black, but there was really no need to because this guy is mostly white, and the parts of the torso that I'm washing right now with a black wash will not be seen after he's wearing the poncho. So I just painted the necessary areas that we're going to have a detail paint job solid black, and the rest got washes and dry brushes. Basically, I just put this wash layer on so that if you could catch a glimpse from the side, like between the seams of the poncho, that it wouldn't be like a white color glaring out. This would help it look more shadowed and get lost in the shadows. So this was just kind of a quick little covering to put underneath. And his spine line and shoulder line there were basically placed there to make the poncho look more full in the back. It looks a little odd with the poncho off, but it was just to give it the right shape while it was hanging off of his shoulders. And here we're hot gluing the hood piece on. We basically just cut a little half moon shape of fabric and hot glued it on, and then wrapped it around the back of his neck in a hood shape, and then hot glued it to itself back around the front. I also took a pair of scissors and kind of ratted up the edges to make it look worn out along the edges of the poncho, and we begin detail painting of the face. So he's got very dark eyes. Around his actual eye color is red, but around that is black. Black nose, and then gray on the insides of his ears. He also has a light gray upper face around his eyes and down his snout. I added some shading under the chin and neck area. Here I'm adding the light gray color. I went back and fixed some of the issues with the pattern of the gray part later on. I misinterpreted some of the pictures I was seeing, so I made it the true pattern and fixed the edges of the gray there later on. So here I'm dry brushing some grays and whites and blacks onto the poncho itself to look like it has been worn and like it might have ashes or dirt, that kind of thing around on it here and there. I've also at this point painted on his fingernails and the palms of his hands dark. And we've also done the dry brushing on his wraps with some gray. As you can see, it makes the high spots pop and the shadows remain. I'm just going around edge highlighting the poncho now. And here's his red eyes, his piercing, scary red eyes. So I could have went with a plethora of different poses and facial expressions for this guy, but the most the scariest, most kind of disturbing look he had in the movie was just his deadpan stare, and just like standing there with his show tails out side to side. But I could have done all kinds of different poses and facial expressions, but I settled with just the blank stare and him holding his weapons to the side. Here we're adding just some random generated dirt and shadow lines over the areas of white fur to give it more detail. And we painted the pine base red and formed the Chotel weapons onto a pie pan here that we're going to place in the oven. And once those came out, we painted the handles black and the blades got a nice silver color. And there he is finished. This one was a blast, guys. I appreciate you guys for stopping by, checking out the channel. Please drop me a sub if at all possible, if you enjoyed the content. And I will see you guys in the next one.